The RP6 handheld is really interesting. Its launch was quite a journey. The appearance was revised once before. It originally looked like this, but then it became this. Don't look closely, you might think it's no different from the RPG2, right? But the RP6 has been upgraded in many ways. The battery went from 5000 to 6000 mAh, it uses a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and the screen is a 5.5-inch AMOLED with a high refresh rate. Alright, let's go over the exterior. The handheld continues with the previous bezel-less design, its surface covered by a glass panel. Both the D-pad and AB buttons are made from a crystal clear material, a clear tribute to the classic PSP handheld. Its sides boast multiple beveled cuts, making it feel remarkably smooth and rounded, allowing for a comfortable fit in your palm. The back utilizes a very delicate frosted material that hardly shows fingerprints, which is quite appealing to players who are particular about such details. The grip bumps are quite pronounced, which improves the handling experience to some extent. Let's take a look at the overall dimensions. Holding it, it feels bigger and more substantial than the G2. Here, let's compare it with the RPG2, which also features a 5.5-inch screen. You'll be able to see the size difference between these two devices from various angles. In terms of buttons, the membrane microswitch D-pad has a crisp press. The AB buttons are made with conductive rubber, which gives them a soft, bouncy feel and ensures they operate very quietly. Let's compare it with the G2 here. The buttons specifically use membrane microswitches. The Hall Effect joystick has a moderate travel distance and a concave design, so the stick head doesn't stick out too much. As for weight, I measured it at 305 grams. So what do you guys think of this weight? The screen is a 5.5-inch 1080p 120Hz AMOLED panel. At a 1/4000th shutter speed, you can see the screen uses PWM dimming. Performance-wise, it's powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, achieving an AnTuTu score of 1.699 million. Compared to the G2 Gen 2's 1.65 million, that's about a 3% difference. Alright, after checking out the benchmarks, let's dive into the actual in-game frame rate performance. God of War 4 crashed in under a minute right at the start. It really seems that 8GB of RAM is quite struggling to handle these massive PC games. To further confirm this point, Mike also tried The Witcher 3. And yes, the result was the same. It crashed right after entering the game. So, recent AAA titles aren't working. But what about something older? Could it run those? Now let's take a look at Tomb Raider, released some time ago. The game runs pretty well. In sustained high-performance mode, with the settings optimized for gaming, at 720p medium quality, you can achieve around 100 frames per second when traversing. The visuals are remarkably smooth. However, the frame rate does experience noticeable dips during intensive fire effects and scene transitions. Besides that, older AAA games like this run just fine on 8GB of RAM. Throughout all my extensive testing, there wasn't a single instance where the system experienced any kind of crash. Regarding Hollow Knight Silksong, in its default mode, you can achieve around 120 FPS when traversing the map. The on-screen visuals are extremely fluid, but do expect some frame rate fluctuations during transitions between different scenes. Hades 2. This game feels pretty stress-free to play. When I'm just moving around, it hits 100 frames per second, which is incredibly smooth. However, during combat, the frame rate does drop a bit, typically to around 80 to 90 FPS. Playing with such a high frame rate naturally consumes more power. You can see it's around 7 watts, meaning the battery life for gaming is just over 3 hours. Now, if we adjust the performance mode to normal and use GameSir to lock the frame rate at 60 FPS, the power consumption instantly drops to approximately 5 watts. This then extends the game's battery life to about 4.5 hours, providing a much more sustained gaming experience. After PC games, let's try some 2-in-1 handheld console games. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with the T22 driver actually performs pretty well. It only needs 5 watts of power to stay mostly stable at 30 FPS. At this rate, the battery lasts a little over 4 hours. Moreover, its texture mapping is quite good, although there might be a slight brief stutter when shaders are loading, but it's hardly noticeable. This is much better than what you'd experience with Windows handhelds, so it actually plays pretty well. But if you're looking for the absolute best experience, I'd highly suggest supporting the official release. When playing Bayonetta, in the same mode, the initial scene rendering demands significant power. In high-performance mode, the frame rate generally stays around 50 FPS. With the high refresh rate support, the overall fluidity is actually quite good and not at all poor. While battling on the plane, the frame rate consistently hovers between 50 to 100 frames per second. This results in a very smooth visual experience, which is quite enjoyable. Concurrently, the battery life at this performance level is approximately 4 hours. Odyssey, this game actually performs really well. With only 5 watts of power, the frame rate consistently stays around 60 FPS. Whether I'm traversing the map or engaging in a fierce boss battle, I haven't encountered any frequent frame drops or annoying stutters. The overall experience has been quite superb. In the Super New Edition 1 mode, the operating efficiency is quite high. It only requires 4 watts of power to maintain a stable 60 frames per second, and the visuals are incredibly smooth. You can probably play for about 5 hours. PC games might crash, so for those needing PCAAA games, I'd suggest getting it right the first time and opting for the 12GB version. It's a better choice. Another significant advantage of an Android handheld device lies in its remarkably low power consumption. On average, it operates at merely around 5 watts, providing over 4 hours of continuous gameplay on a single charge. Mario! Let's check the handheld's thermals. In performance mode, after 15 minutes of emulating the PC game Tomb Raider 9, the device's peak temperature reached about 38 degrees, mainly in the screen area. The hand grip's temperature is about 17 degrees, making long-term holding very comfortable. The fan noise is around 49 decibels, which is quite noticeable. However, if we switch to NS games, fan noise drops significantly to around 35 decibels. You can barely notice it playing this type of game.